A guy who wouldn't even play in a single game of the NBA against a guy with career averages of 1.5 points and 1.5 rebounds, fighting with a wooden pole on the worst team in the NBA. That is the story we're telling today, and it's about the Portland Trail Blazers, who have always been a team known for this sort of unpredictable chaos. When it comes to drafting players, they have a history of spending high picks on Bill Walton, Sam Bowie, and Greg Oden, guys who couldn't play because they are constantly injured. There's a chaotic randomness to that. It's not like they knew those dudes would wind up being the Walking Dead. It just worked out that way for the Blazers, over and over again, on insanely important draft picks. We all still love you, Brandon Roy. Famously, in the early 2000s, this was a team known as the Portland Jail Blazers. From Ruben Patterson's attempted rape charges, to Zach Randolph punching Patterson in the face and then spending a week in hiding thinking Patterson was going to kill him, to Quintel Woods running a dogfighting ring, and finally, Damon Stoudemire's repeated arrests for bringing drugs on planes. It was, a lot. But one of my favorite stories that pretty much no one's ever heard of actually happened a little bit after the Jail Blazers were broken up. Let me introduce you to two giant men who barely knew how to play basketball. Ha Seung-jin was a little-known South Korean center. Coming out of South Korea, he measured at 7'3", 305 beefy pounds. There he was one of the biggest college stars they had, winning the Korean equivalent of the national championship and a Final Four MVP. He was drafted in the second round, but he didn't make the Blazers at first, so he ended up with a semi-professional team called the Portland Reign. That's right, Reign, R-E-I-G-N. Not the more obvious choice for a team in a city that is riddled with water falling from the skies, R-A-I-N. That wasn't until the Blazers needed him in wake of major injuries to Theo Ratliff and Joel Przybilla, the only centers on the roster. He would go on to play a total of 104 minutes that season and average approximately 1-1. Meanwhile, there was an even taller dude named Nedzad Sinanovic, a 7'4" Bosnian guy who'd been playing in Belgium and Spain the previous few years, averaging an amazing 2 points and 2 rebounds for Real Madrid in the Spanish league. Obviously, he was a stud. Somehow, and by somehow, I mean because he was 7'4" and they had the draft rights to him, he ended up making Portland's Summer League team for a few years in a row. Which brings us to the one year he made it past Summer League, Training Camp 2005. This team was bad, on their way to finish at the bottom of the NBA, and their only player who had any business making a major impact on the team was a young Zach Randolph. As training camp began, Ha and Sinanovic were fighting for the last spot in the roster. And one day, at the end of practice, where the two of them had been having a tough physical post-battle against each other, presumably a very unathletic battle, the team was winding down with free throws. After Sinanovic made one particular free throw, he began taunting Ha, who was notoriously poor from the foul stripe, 50%. And they got in a bit of a scuffle. That's not too big of a deal. Fights happen in practice all the time, even at the NBA level. But then, things escalated. The Blazers' practice turned into a John Wick scene. He got punched in the face, and they were eventually pulled apart by assistant coaches and other staffers, when Ha began screaming, "I'll sue!" at him as they were getting pulled apart. They were escorted to different sides of the facility, and normally that's where the story would end. But Ha's neutral corner was the weight room, and so he happened to find, those wooden poles players often use to stretch? Well, he found one of those. He picked it up, and he went after Sinanovic, swinging this giant wooden pole at him. Imagine that scene, a gigantic 7-foot-plus human swinging a giant wooden pole at another hilariously huge man. Somehow, Sinanovic managed to block the first swing with his forearm, but Ha swung it again and hit him directly in the ribs before someone managed to rip the thing out of his hands and throw it across the court. Now, this wasn't anything particularly serious, especially compared to the previous few years. Still, it led to some minor rib injuries for Sinanovic, who didn't end up making the team anyways and spent the rest of his career bouncing around in Europe. This is such a random, insane battle with the weirdest weapon and two completely inconsequential but hilarious characters involved that this story may need its own made-for-TV movie. That's a beautiful story. Also a worthless one. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Frank Smith. You can follow me at FMS_Frank Smith and follow ClutchPoints at ClutchPoints. Check out all of our videos on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram TV. For this video, I want you to give me your dream NBA fight. Two guys opposite corner, duking it out. Past, present, doesn't matter. Let me know who you want and who wins. Thank you guys. Till next time.